So my name is Noelle Dela Cruz. My pronouns are she, her. I am a school psychologist in the District of Manatee County and also co-chair for the LGBTQ plus district committee. So our presentation today is titled Starting from Nothing, our journey in creating social safety nets for LGBTQ plus youth. Our first ATN was about 4 years ago, when our district had very little services and supports in place for LGBTQ plus youth.
As I mentioned earlier, we looked at our school board's non-discrimination policy. Well, our county's anti-discrimination policy enumerated the prohibition of discrimination on the basis of, quote, sex, including sexual orientation, transgender status, or gender identity, unquote. Another example of us networking from the bottom up was when we invited one of our school board members whom we introduced ourselves to at the 2019 ATN conference to several of our committee members. And as a result of this new connection, this school board member, Charlie Kennedy, invited us to present at a school board workshop in March of 2019, which was also attended by our superintendent. Meantime, we were able to procure training through Equality Florida for several staff, including 50 plus staff members of various district employees, and thus expanding our safety net. In addition to that, we got a meeting with our superintendent and our school board attorney, who approved our LGBTQ plus guidelines. Furthermore, our superintendent designated that we would have a staff member in every school building to fulfill the role of an LGBTQ plus equity liaison to support our students and staff. We gained 4 new members and valuable human resources: Jenny Marmo, Carol Lansford, Diane Allen Maris, and Krista. Those were strengths and a win. In the spring of 2019, much of our work was the collaboration and networking that led to the expansion of our safety net. And we networked laterally by connecting with a code of conduct committee in order to request a change from a gender binary dress code to a gender neutral one. And that was done in 2019. And guess what? The dress code was changed to gender neutral. Then our LGBTQ plus guidelines had already been established and approved May 2019. And we were to train our LGBTQ plus equity liaisons by December of 2019. In the late spring of 2020, we expanded our safety net by reaching out to our SEL emotional learning coordinator and another coordinator, and they agreed to be committee members. And finally, after a reorganization in 2021, we added several more committee members, 2 of them, one of them the director of student services, and another, the new supervisor for school psychologist. And finally, in the fall of 2020, we were invited to the student support specialists and deans first meeting of the school year to give a brief training on our LGBTQ plus guidelines, as these were the folks that administer discipline to the students.
Knowing the importance of having GSAs in our buildings, not just for LGBTQ plus youth, but for all of our students, really, in terms of improving school climate. We have a liaison in each building, and so for us, a goal is to continue our communication with them to get a pulse of what's really happening out in the school, so we know as a committee how to support them. But maybe you have counselors, or your GSA sponsors, or just anyone who you know is an ally, people to join. You know, as much as it's great to have people with experience and knowledge in this work from a mental health perspective or a social justice perspective or an education perspective. And of course, administrator support is one of the best resources of all, finding those administrators who again think this work is important and are willing to put those safe space stickers on their offices, implement these ideas and these procedures that we're trying to roll out. We were looking at policy, we were looking at procedure, we wanted things to be official. I think there's benefits to that. I think it sets a precedent for staff members to know that the district is putting this in writing and is supporting this at a board level, or that, you know, these procedures that we have, that administration is being trained on them. And I think that that sets a big precedent. But the reality also is, you know, as many policies and procedures that you put in place, it doesn't always mean they're being followed at the ground level. And so, you know, the bottom up approach, sort of like this grassroots effort of really trying to get, connect with the people who are doing the work, the counselors, the teachers. That's a big focus for our committee this year and in the upcoming years, of really trying to support and provide resources to the people working with the students and working with the youth, and trying to balance the top down and bottom up. So it's important to have both, right? As when we had the policies and we had the procedures, knowing, okay, well, we don't stop here now that we have it in writing. Now, how can we make this visible in the schools? How can we, you know, make this so that students know that this is in place, and the educators and the teachers know that these policies and procedures are in place, and really providing them with the materials of knowing, if you have a student come to you and disclose something or needing support, what do you do? We did apply for a Title IV grant. Title IV grant was for professional development. We chose 4 target schools. Our school district has a base grant, a school climate grant this year, and there are 4 schools that participate in different type of SEL and school climate instruction and programming. And so we thought if we partnered with those school climate schools to provide professional development now out in the building, right? So beyond the liaisons, but now training school staff, teachers, administrators, choosing different modules through Welcoming Schools, that would be a great addition to the school climate work that was going on. We are excited for that Title IV grant. We're in the process of trying to find schools that we'll use for the grant. Also, we'll be training liaisons and hoping we can extend to other support staff. And it will be with the Welcoming Schools training. So I think curriculum is another area that we really, in the future, foresee us trying to partner with. As Karina mentioned, you know, we've worked with Code of Conduct, school climate, mental health. You know, we would like to include the nurses and Project Heart and curriculum. So just really always thinking where we want to go from here, down all the way through. But Charlie Kennedy was the board member who has helped us tremendously with our work. He finds it extremely important. He's always willing to stick his neck out for us and get us, you know, approval to present at the board. I feel like that's really what started our growth, was presenting at the board and there being the opportunity to share the goals of our committee and really speak in public about what the importance of this work. And so shout out to Charlie. Also shout out to Ian. I don't know if he's in here, but Ian Silvestrum from Equality Florida is literally on call for our committee. I think there was a question about handling parent pushback. I'm not in the chat right now, but I think that I saw it. In terms of handling to parent pushback, again, that's something that really varies from school to school. We encourage our liaisons and administrators to reach out to our committee when they have issues that arise with parents. Often that is something that we then go to our administrators. Sometimes legal counsel gets involved. Depending on the issue. If we've had field trip issues, rooming issues that we've assisted schools with, bathroom issues that we've assisted schools with. You know, we really try to empower schools to know that in a lot of situations, we do not need parent permission to affirm students. But I think that, you know, we try to kind of always use our guidelines now that we have the guidelines. Before we had the guidelines, there wasn't anything in writing, nothing that our district was really putting out there, standing behind in terms of how we can affirm students and what our expectations are when working with LGBTQ+ youth. And now that we have those guidelines, although they're not board approved, and that's been something we've kind of gone back and forth about, actually that we've had discussion with Ian about, it's still in writing, and it's still something that we've trained schools on. It's on our website, and it's something that's visible. And so it really empowers liaisons in schools to at least have something that sort of backs them up in terms of what our stance is and what the expectation is when it comes to some of these issues that
I
arise.
come up with one of our principals who was really not supporting the idea of like affirming a student's gender if it was different from what their birth certificate was. And we're not trying to change your mind, but we just know that research says, and that's the stance that we